R.a.c.i.s.t staff bullies, Keanu Reeves, unaware. She's the CEO of the company. The sharp hum of the espresso machine filled the air as a petite, sharply dressed woman in her early 30s entered a bustling corporate building. She wore a simple yet elegant black blazer paired with jeans, her raven hair tied into a neat bun. Her demeanor was composed, but her eyes gleamed with an air of authority. Nobody seemed to notice her presence as employees buzzed around, each immersed in their routines. She approached the reception desk where a middle-aged woman dressed in an expensive-looking navy blue suit barely spared her a glance. "Yes?" the receptionist said curtly, tapping impatiently at her keyboard. "I'm here to meet Mr. Jonathan Graham," the woman replied politely. The receptionist's brows furrowed as she looked the woman up and down, her judgment evident. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but—" "No appointment, no entry. You can't just walk into a building like this and demand to meet executives. We're not running a charity." Her tone was icy, with an undertone of disdain. The woman nodded calmly. "I understand. Could you let him know I'm here?" The receptionist smirked. "Look, sweetheart, I don't know who you think you are, but Mr. Graham doesn't have time for random visitors. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do." The woman opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, a younger staff member walked up to the receptionist. "Karen, we need you to update the meeting room schedule," he said. Karen, the receptionist, huffed but complied. "Fine, but you," she snapped at the woman, "don't hang around here. This isn't a waiting area." As Karen busied herself with her task, the woman glanced at the building's directory and calmly walked toward the elevator. Karen noticed and shouted, "Hey, you can't just—" But the elevator doors closed before she could finish. The woman stepped out on the top floor and walked into a massive open office with glass walls. Everyone was too busy to notice her until she stopped in front of the largest office at the far end. The gold nameplate on the door read, "Keanu Reeves, Chief Executive Officer." She pushed the door open and found a middle-aged man sitting behind a mahogany desk, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed. He looked up in surprise. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Sophia smiled. "We need to talk." "Sure, but—" "I thought you were traveling. You didn't inform anyone about your visit." "I wanted to see how things operate when I'm not around," she replied, her tone cool. Jonathan Graham chuckled nervously. "Well, I hope you've been impressed." "Not exactly," Sophia said, walking to the window that overlooked the city skyline. "Let me tell you what just happened downstairs." She recounted her interaction with Karen, the receptionist. Jonathan's face paled with every word. "She doesn't know who you are, does she?" "Clearly not." I'll handle it right away. She'll be gone by the end of the day." Sophia turned to face him, her expression sharp. "No, she won't. Firing her isn't the solution." Jonathan blinked in confusion. "Then what do you suggest?" Sophia's lips curled into a faint smile. "I'm not here to suggest. I'm here to act. But before I do, I want to see how deep this problem goes." "What do you mean?" "I'll be spending the next 2 days here, not as the CEO, but as a visitor. Nobody except you and HR should know who I am. I want to see how employees treat outsiders and each other when they think no one important is watching." Jonathan hesitated but eventually nodded. "All right, I'll inform HR." The next morning, Sophia arrived at the building again, dressed more casually this time in a simple white blouse and slacks. She noticed Karen at the reception desk, her expression sour as she dealt with a courier. Sophia approached the desk. "Good morning. Could you direct me to the marketing department?" Karen didn't even look up. "Take the stairs to the 3rd floor. The elevators are for employees only." Sophia raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. She climbed the stairs, noting the peeling paint on the walls and the flickering lights in the stairwell. On the 3rd floor, she found the marketing department buzzing with activity. As she entered, a young woman with a bright smile approached her. "Hi there. Can I help you?" "I'm looking to learn more about your campaigns," Sophia said. "Sure. Let me introduce you to our team lead." The young woman led Sophia to a corner office. The team lead, a man in his late 30s, looked up from his laptop. "Who's this?" "I'm just visiting," Sophia replied. "I'm curious about the work you're doing here." The man frowned. "Visiting? Do you even have clearance to be here?" Look, we're busy. If you don't have an appointment, you shouldn't be here." Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly. "I understand. I'll leave you to your work." She spent the rest of the day observing interactions around the office. She saw employees belittling interns, managers ignoring junior staff, and, most disturbingly, Karen snapping at anyone who didn't meet her arbitrary standards of importance. When Sophia returned to her hotel that evening, her mind was racing. It wasn't just Karen. The entire culture of the company she had built from the ground up seemed to have shifted in her absence. The next day, Sophia returned to the office, this time dressed in her usual elegant attire. Karen spotted her and immediately straightened up, recognizing her from the day before. "You again?" she said, her tone dripping with annoyance. Before Sophia could respond, Jonathan appeared behind her. "Good morning, Ms. Reeves," he said loudly, ensuring everyone in the vicinity heard him. Karen's face went white as she stammered, "Ms. Reeves? As in, the CEO?" Sophia turned to face Karen, her expression calm but steely. "Yes, I believe we've met." Karen opened her mouth to respond, but Sophia held up a hand. "Let's talk in my office." Jonathan followed Sophia as she walked to her office, leaving a trail of whispers in her wake. Once inside, Sophia closed the door and faced Jonathan. "It's worse than I thought," she said. Jonathan nodded grimly. "What do you want to do?" Sophia's gaze was resolute. "It's time to remind everyone who we are and what we stand for." The next morning, an email from Sophia Reeves was sent to every employee in the company. The subject line read, "Mandatory staff meeting. Attendance required." The meeting was scheduled for noon in the main conference hall. The email caused a ripple of murmurs and speculations throughout the building. For many employees, it was their first time hearing directly from the CEO. By noon, the conference hall was packed. Employees whispered nervously, their eyes darting toward the stage. Karen sat stiffly in the back row, her face pale as she avoided making eye contact with anyone. Jonathan Graham stood by the podium, visibly uneasy, while Sophia walked in with quiet confidence. She stepped up to the microphone, scanning the room before speaking. "Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here." Her voice was calm but firm, commanding the attention of every person in the room. "For those who don't know me, I'm Sophia Reeves, the founder and CEO of this company. Over the last few days, I've been observing the culture here, not as your CEO, but as a visitor, a customer, and a colleague. What I've seen has been deeply troubling." The murmurs in the room ceased instantly. "This company was built on the values of respect, inclusion, and excellence," she continued. "But somewhere along the way, those values have been lost. I've seen disrespect toward visitors, condescension toward junior staff, and a toxic environment that undermines teamwork and creativity." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I'm not here to point fingers or shame anyone, but I am here to fix this. Effective immediately, we are implementing changes to ensure that this company reflects the values it was founded on." She gestured toward Jonathan, who handed her a folder. "First, every employee, from the receptionist to the executive team, will undergo mandatory training on workplace ethics and professional conduct. Second, we are establishing an anonymous reporting system to address any instances of harassment, discrimination, or unethical behavior." Karen shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands gripping the armrests tightly.
"Finally," Sophia said, her tone sharp, "we are creating a mentorship program to support junior staff and interns. Everyone here deserves to feel valued and supported in their roles, regardless of their position." She closed the folder and looked directly at the audience. "Let me be clear, this isn't optional. These changes are non-negotiable, and anyone who cannot align with the values of this company is welcome to leave." The room was silent. Sophia's words carried an undeniable weight. She stepped away from the podium and walked to the edge of the stage. "Before I end this meeting, I want to share something personal. When I started this company, I was just another outsider. I didn't have the connections or the pedigree that many of my peers did. What I had was determination and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. What I've seen over the past 2 days reminds me of the barriers I faced as a young professional, and I won't allow this company to become a place that builds walls instead of bridges. She turned to Jonathan and nodded. Let's open the floor to questions. A young intern raised her hand timidly. Ms. Reeves, do you really think we can change the culture here? It feels so ingrained. Sophia smiled. Change is never easy, but it's always possible. It starts with accountability. It starts with each of us choosing to be better every single day. Karen suddenly stood up. Ms. Reeves, she began, her voice trembling, I'd like to apologize for my behavior. I didn't know who you were, but that's no excuse for how I treated you. I was wrong. Sophia regarded her calmly. Thank you for acknowledging that, Karen. But this isn't about me. It's about how you treat everyone who walks through those doors. That's what truly matters. Karen nodded, her face red with shame, and sat back down. After the meeting, the atmosphere in the building shifted. The training sessions began immediately, with Sophia personally attending the first session to emphasize its importance. Employees who had once dismissed each other began to collaborate more openly. Over the following weeks, Sophia's reforms transformed the company. Karen, who initially resisted the changes, eventually became one of the most active participants in the mentorship program, determined to prove she could do better. One day, as Sophia walked through the office, she saw Karen patiently guiding a nervous new intern through a task. Their interaction was respectful and encouraging. Sophia smiled to herself, knowing the company was finally heading in the right direction. True leadership isn't about power, it's about fostering a culture of respect, accountability, and growth. Change starts with individuals, but it's sustained by collective effort.